Hello, today we're going to have Harold Haynes talk to us about two books. One is a children's storybook that he totally thought up on his own and went and had it made up and so on. And the other is a non-fiction type book, and I'm not even going to tell you what it's about because I'm going to let him tell you. It's really quite fun, and we've had a good time over the last year or so talking about some of the episodes in it. So here we go, Harold. What is the title of the book that you're writing, and what's its thrust?
The book I'm working on right now is called May I Speak to Your Manager, Please? How to Supplement Your Income Tax-Free. And essentially it's what I would describe as a consumer advocacy book. Things that I've done along my journey as a consumer and lessons I've learned that hopefully can be communicated to other people to help them become better consumers and advocates for themselves.
Okay. What's your favorite anecdote in it? Because I know you've got a lot. Or maybe that's giving away too much, but what's your favorite anecdote?
There's quite a few anecdotes I like in it. I think for me the favorite anecdote I have in there is a story about when I had gone to do a credit check. I found that there was a lien registered against a motorcycle I had bought, and I had paid out the loan. And I was quite annoyed to find out about this lien, so I called the Ministry of Consumer and Corporate Relations, or whatever the title of the ministry is nowadays, and found out that banks have to deregister these loans within 30 days of them being paid off. And if they don't, you as the consumer have certain rights. And so they told me about these rights, and I followed their suggestion and wrote a nice, pleasant letter to the bank quoting the legislation that gives me this protection. And I told them that I would like my $500 because the legislation allows for that, for you as a consumer, because the bank failed to fulfill its obligation. And I got a nice letter from the bank saying, thank you for bringing this to our attention, and we will send you a check for $500 plus your credit bureau check and your online lien search. So that's one of my biggest piece of excitement.
and it is, and we all love to hear something that shows when we kind of win something back from the bank, don't we?
We do, and for me it was a case of one for the little guy, and you and I have talked about this beforehand. So often the banks have all these options, and creditors have all these options. They can charge you interest, or they may place a black mark against your credit check and this kind of thing. And I thought, good, there's actually something here that protects me as a consumer. And that's why I was really interested in writing this book, because I thought, I'm learning lots of things, and I can tell you, and tell Ron, and tell some other friends, but how do I get that message out to more people? And so that's why I've been working on this book.
And isn't that a great motivation? So that leads right into my next question. What makes a person write nonfiction? You get up in the morning, you do your day, you got your family, you got all these things you're doing. What makes you want to write this book?
Well, as I was starting to say, what really motivates me to write this book is I found little tricks that I can use to further my life as a consumer and protect myself. And I thought I'd really like to be able to help other people with that. And I've told stories to, as I say, you and Ron and some of my other friends, and a few people said, well, why don't you write a book? And I thought, who wants to read me? Because I'm not published, right? Who's Harold? But people really enjoy hearing these stories and think, hey, if you can do that, maybe I can do that. So that's really been my big motivating factor, is it's a way for me to help people to help themselves. And that's what I really enjoy about doing it.
Yeah, that makes sense. The second thing I really wanted to know is about your children's book, and I know that it came from a real life experience. Can you tell us about that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. The story is entitled The Marshmallow Farm, and really came out of just a serendipitous moment when my wife and I were driving down the country roads of southern Ontario, and driving by the farms we saw these big bales of hay wrapped in white. Many of you may have seen them. And the first thing that came to my mind was, well, those look like marshmallows. So I said to my grandson, who was in the back seat at the time, Gage, do you know what those are? And he said, what? I said, those are giant marshmallows. Really? And I said, yeah, what they do is they grow these marshmallows on the farm, and then they send them to the marshmallow factory where they cut them up, put them in bags, and sell them in the grocery store. And that was the story, and he was so excited and amazed about these marshmallows that he had seen on the way to his Nana and Papa's house.
Well, maybe you should show us the book here, actually. Can we just
Sure.
hold it up? And it's called The Marshmallow Farm by Harold Haynes and illustrated by Laurie Hawkins. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about how that all came to be.
Sure. I'd be happy to. So after I told him the story, he was so excited and went to the campgrounds with us and told all the people in the campground about these marshmallow farms he'd driven by. People said, oh, you should put that into a little storybook. And I thought, well, I guess I can do that. I don't know how. But one day I decided, you know what, I want to do this. It just as a family keepsake. Plus it's a fun little story, right? It's a good little piece of family history. So I went to task and wrote it out just on my word processor. And I started looking for somebody who would be able to illustrate it for me. I wasn't in a position where I was prepared to pay somebody because this was just a little project for my family. So I started contacting the local high school and spoke to the art department. Told the art teacher about my little project, and she said, that sounds like a really fun story. I'd be happy to illustrate the pictures for you. And so I said, really? So I gave her the manuscript, and a couple months later, lo and behold, she gave me the first draft. And that was really exciting. I was just so impressed with it, with the illustrations by Laurie. She did a really nice job. I know some people in town that have their own printing company, and I asked them if they could put together a small run for me. So I gave them both a hard copy of the pictures and a copy of the electronic file for the text, and they put it together for me and did a limited run.
Exciting.
Yeah, it was fun.
And so this is what got you started. That leads me into my next question about your writing journey, because lots of us think we can write a book, or we should write a book, but I guess what made you put that plan into action, both for this book, and we're going to talk about your work in progress, about both of those books. What makes you actually, well, the expression is put pen to paper, but I think it's more likely put fingers on keyboard.
It is today.
Yeah.
The thing that really motivated me to put my keyboard, or my fingers to the keyboard for this, was it was just such a fun story. It was lighthearted, and I really wanted to have a little keepsake about this special time with my grandson. I figured it wouldn't be long until he wouldn't believe these kinds of things, sort of like the old Santa Claus story.
Yeah.
So I thought I wanted to make the most of it while I could.
Yeah.
And it was just an internal, motivating thing. I wanted something to do for my family. And that's why I did this particular project. In terms of the May I Speak to Your Manager project that I'm currently working on, the big motivating thing for me has been, I was raised in a family where we were taught to help other people. Eventually when I went to university, I got into a field that was helping others, and this was just a natural extension of another way to help people based upon the things I've learned and discovered along the way.
Okay, my next question is, how much rewriting did you have to do for your storybook and for your current work in progress?
Two totally different projects. The storybook, I probably rewrote 3 or 4 times. It just came together very naturally, very naturally. It was simply a case of me telling the story, of telling my grandson the story. There were not a lot of rewrites. The current book I'm working on, May I Speak to Your Manager Please, is taking a lot more effort. It's a much bigger project, and when I first started writing the book, I found it actually quite easy to write the story and just share my stories of being a consumer. The part where I'm getting more bogged down is the editing. The editing. I'm on my first rewrite right now, and it's a very slow process for me.
Editing is the thing, isn't it? and it's amazing how much editing has to be done so that the consumer out there gets the book that looks like it just came, off the top of your head, but it didn't.
No, it doesn't.
Would you change anything about the way you developed either book? Knowing what you know now, sort of thing?
Well, actually, that's an interesting question. I had quite a few people read The Marshmallow Farm for me. And one person in particular pointed out to me that they would change one thing, and after they pointed this out to me, I thought, you know what, I would change that again. And that is, in the story, I don't want to give the whole story away, But in the story, when I'm writing, Gage discovers that the Marshmallow Farm is simply a story, and that's not true. Next time I would leave that out, so that we never know that Gage realizes that the Marshmallow Farms are just a story. I would have left that magical moment where he really believes that they are marshmallows. So it's something to do a little bit different. Rather than have the reality get in there, I would just leave it magical.
You know, that is a really good comment, because as I think about in writing, we're always talking about don't tell, you should show. And so you're expecting your reader to get from what you've written a certain emotion, but you don't write on the page, you are supposed to feel such and such now.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about, isn't it?
It is.
Just let them get what the message of the book is.
Right. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Harold, you don't write full time. I know you've got that day job, and I just wonder how you find time to finish a project.
The first project, the Marshmallow Farm, I found quite easy just because it was a short project. I had help with the illustrations. So for me that was a fun time-limited project, and I wanted it done by Christmas so I could give copies to all the grandchildren and to my children, those kind of things. So
Yeah.
I really had a motivating drive there to get it done by a certain deadline. The May I Speak to Your Manager, Please has been a project on the go for about 2 to 3 years now. And when I first started off, it was easy in the sense I was disciplined enough to say every Tuesday night from 7 o'clock until 9 or 10. That was my writing time. My kids knew that, my wife knew that, and I was dedicated to that. Where I got bogged down was after I finished writing and it became editing. It's like, well, then I started to get bogged down in all the details of the book. What's my cover going to look like? Who's going to do my cover? And I don't know how much of that was practical, realistic questions, and how much of that was more of a game I was playing with myself to divert myself from having to deal with the reality that I still have to edit it. I still have to spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Sometimes my house is so clean because I can just keep doing all kinds of things rather than actually get down and do the writing.
Yes.
Yeah. I think everyone goes through that.
Yes.
Oh, you're going to love this one. When you go into a bookstore and you see others' books for sale there, do you ever have any thoughts of your books on the shelf?
I haven't had too many lately, but when I first worked on the Marshmallow Farm, I saw the final product with the cover and the illustrations and everything else. I really wanted to see it in chapters or online, those kinds of things. And I actually did sort of envision that. And part of that envisioning was a strategy I've learned through the self-help literature, professional development literature, where they talk about visualizing in order to help make something come true. So I was actually trying to use that as a technique.
Yeah.
And likewise, when I've been in the bookstores and working on my book entitled May I Speak to Your Manager, Please, I've thought to myself, where would that actually fit? How would it look on the bookshelf? How many people would be looking at it and picking it up? So I've done that kind of thing, partly just out of curiosity, wondering, but also trying to do it strategically so it's a motivating factor, keep me moving towards that goal.
Almost like The Secret, where
Exactly.
the universe, you put those thoughts out into the universe and you hope that there's listening and it's going to come back to you, don't you? Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting you chose that book because what got me started on this whole path was reading The Secret about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. And I read several books like that too, and it's not that you think that you have to have a program to live your life, but I always think that anything that can make you think more positively and move yourself forward in a more positive way is good. You might not agree with everything they say in the book, but
No.
yeah.
But as I'm sure we share the same philosophy, any learning is good learning.